How's your evening going?
Pretty par for the course. You know, rejection, depression, confusion. I don't know. Just feels like I don't fit in anywhere, you know?
You know your problem?
What's my problem?
You've just been conditioned to be sad. You're always looking for the bad things. I'm your guardian angel, and I'm here to get you out of your shell.
Okay, you are, huh? Well, how am I going to do that, Mr. Guardian Angel?
And the first thing you have to do is let go of fear.
Okay.
Did you do it?
Yes. It is let go.
Okay, show me.
Yay! I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, okay, all right. First thing you have to do to let go of fear is just fill out a Connect card. You can find them in the seat back pocket in front of you at Shoreline Church.
Okay. All right. I can do that later.
The second thing is, you gotta dance.
Just like dance now?
Yes, dance now. Your fear affects you and everyone around you. You just gotta let it go.
Okay. Not much of a dancer. All right. I'm going for it. Just like a, you know what I mean?
Okay. Why don't you sit back down?
All right. Oh, good, actually.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting somewhere.
Okay, I'm fired up.
So it looks like we've got 2 goals for this series.
2 goals.
First one,
Yep.
help you get past living in fear.
Probably already done it.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, number 2,
Yep.
never, ever dance again.
That's right. Oh, okay.
How many people went to the Destin Parade yesterday? Sweet. Man, that was cool. My mom is actually in town from Austin, Texas. She's here in the service. I'm going to have her sing something for you. Just kidding. But when she came, she brought me a reindeer onesie that she had bought at Goodwill. It got hot yesterday, y'all. Have you ever had somebody throw up in your car and you go, I think we got it all out, and then it gets really hot and then you start smell? Yeah. The hotter it got yesterday, the more I smelled the previous owner, and it was like not a good thing. Also, this is the first year that I wasn't in the parade, but I was attending the parade, and it's dangerous. It's like you got to wear like full Kevlar. I was standing next to this guy, and all of a sudden I hear this smock, and somebody had just wung a full bag of Skittles and hit him in the chest, like hard enough to probably crack the sternum. And so I'm like, I'm wearing a helmet next year, but we did great. Good job, parade team. You guys represented out there. And it's cool that we get to hand out invites during that time. Maybe you're even here today because you got an invite yesterday. I just want to say welcome. Already without doing anything, you belong here. This is our second week in our It's a Wonderful Life series. Last week, here's what we talked about. If you remember this. If not, go back and watch it. It's a great kind of start for the Christmas season. But what we said is that God cares more about your availability than he does your ability, right? It's not about your skills being top-notch. It's not about you being the standout star or the starting quarterback. What he cares is that you would just say this Christmas season, open-handedly, God, use me. What do you have for me? And we use this story of Mary, the future mother of Jesus, and her interaction with the angel Gabriel saying, you're going to be a key player in Christmas. And Mary said, use me. This week, we're going to talk about another angelic interaction. This one's a little more Hollywood. So this is in the movie It's a Wonderful Life, and we're talking about the main character, George Bailey, and his interaction with an angel. So George Bailey in Bedford Falls is the perpetual do-gooder. He's the dreamer. He's the one that's always going the extra mile, who's sacrificing his time. But he has a moment, like probably all of us have, where you just suddenly think to yourself, does this even matter? like all this extra effort I'm doing, all this love, all this time, does anybody even care? Like, am I even making a difference? He has that moment. And he's so down that the people in the town notice it. They pray for him. And so in the movie, God in the movie sends him an angel, Clarence, to kind of shake him out of it. And in this interaction that Clarence, the angel, has with George Bailey has a statement where he goes, I think the world might be better if I'd just never been born at all. And Clarence has kind of this epiphany, seizes the moment, and he goes, you know what? I'm going to show you, George Bailey, what this world would look like, what it would be like had there never been a George Bailey in it. And what we find in this vision, in this out-of-body experience, is when we see the world with no George Bailey, it's not just absent of George Bailey's bad decisions, it is absent of every small interaction that he'd ever had. And one thing that I think that we can pull from this movie and why I think it is so impactful is so many times we look at the relevance or the impact of our big decisions, but we fail to realize that God has orchestrated small, seemingly insignificant choices of your daily life that carry eternal impact. And when you look at this city with no George Bailey, it's all of a sudden becomes a place that is void of joy. It's void of hope, right? It is, think about the life and the joy that you bring. And we sometimes think to ourselves, it'd probably be better off, and you're looking at the worst decisions you've made. But God has used you and will continue to use you from the big decisions to the daily, small, minute decisions. So today's message is called The Ripple Effect. And I want to remind you guys of this, that there are people connected to your purpose. There are people connected to your decisions. Now, sometimes we like to convince ourselves that there aren't, especially in our unhealthy times. We like to think I'm just doing damage to myself, right? I can get through, it's okay, I can survive, but God has not designed life to be that way. He has not designed you to be that way. And though maybe right now all you're thinking is negative like George Bailey was, and you're thinking it's probably better that people aren't impacted by my decisions and my purpose, God wants to encourage you this morning that that is actually a lofty, beautiful responsibility and opportunity that we have. When I was in middle school, our youth group was super cool. Now the gospel, little digression here, but the gospel refers to the good news, talking about the fact that Jesus came here to earth, lived a perfect life, died for us, rose from the dead 3 days later, and because of that, we can choose to be forgiven by believing that Jesus died for us, and now we are no longer defined by our actions, but we are defined by what Jesus has done for us. That is the gospel. Now, in middle school, we had these teams that were put together, and we would practice our gospel presentations. We would actually practice what it looks like to tell somebody about the good news using our story, using different verses. So I had this thing prepared, right? I had it down pat. And I had my little team. We're doing this presentation to our peers in this auditorium. One guy in the team was supposed to sing a song. One guy in the team was supposed to do a game. And then gospel presentation was Graham, right? And get ready, boy, because I had practiced this thing. So I get up there and I start to do the gospel presentation, and I'm about a third of the way through this thing, and I don't know what happened. If you were watching me, you'd be like, oh, he's killing it. I had this like switch in me, and I became so nervous out of nowhere, and I had like a borderline meltdown. I started to cry. I went up the steps, went and just sat in a random chair and just started to cry. And everyone on my team's like, okay, like who's gonna step up? So here's this Graham just like weeping on himself, right, in this chair. And it was I can look back and laugh now / cry, but it was a very raw moment for me. And there's a group of girls that was in my middle school youth group. They stole the notebook out of my backpack, took it back that night because we were actually staying in a remote place. And they all wrote encouraging notes to me in a notebook and put it back in the backpack. And so I found it because I was going to take notes, and I look and I see this pages and pages of these notes that say like, hey, keep going, right? We've all been there, that sort of thing. And I thought about the choice of even those girls in the youth group. It wasn't like they had to do something malicious. All they had to do was not step into that moment. And I fully believe that the trajectory of my life would have been different. I'm not going to say like I would have been a heroin addict. That's not what I'm saying. But I think in that moment, really, there was a shift. Is somebody taking advantage or attacking me in my vulnerable moment, or is somebody encouraging me and bringing life? And maybe at the very least, I just kind of reevaluated what I thought was possible in that moment just because they were willing to lean in. Also, side note, I'm pretty sure that the leaders of the middle school youth group in that moment didn't watch this tall, goofy kid borderline wet his pants and start weeping and go sit down in a chair and go, well, there's our future public speaker, right? That's probably not what they thought. And so just as a reminder, we can't discount those kiddos. We can't discount those kiddos. Parents in here, don't discount those kiddos. Never know. Man, you never know the plan that God has for them. Teachers in here, don't discount those kiddos. That kid that always gets in trouble, right? The awkward one. Man, don't discount them. What I love about this message is that God has such a specific, beautiful plan for all of us, has individually created us as his idea and is orchestrating things, and we get to celebrate what God is bringing together. Another story I want to tell you, not nearly as cool. Not that one was cool. I was living in Huntington Beach, and for a while there at least, I was into the volleyball scene pretty heavy. So I had some pull on the volleyball scene. And I worked for FCA, which is Fellowship of Christian Athletes, the volleyball ministry. And there was one day I was about to go down and play volleyball at the beach, and I'm in my closet. This sounds super nerdy, bear with me here. But I had an FCA tank top, and I had a blank tank top. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that we should all wear Christian shirts all the time. That's not my point. But my point is this, that I remember consciously deciding not to wear the FCA tank top, to wear the blank tank top. And in my mind, I think that I can trick myself or manipulate myself or lie to myself and say, the reason I did it is just because I get into a lot of conversations with FCA and I'm really trying to focus on volleyball and I don't really have the time. But the word that's more honest, if I'm going to be on the nose, it comes back to I was ashamed. Like I was ashamed of the gospel in that moment. I chose to wear this blank shirt instead of this. And I don't want to dramatize it, but it was enough that it stuck with me. Gets even worse. Take my blank tank top, put it on, go on down to the beach, playing. There's this new guy there. His name is Dave. I'd never met him before, but he and I start playing. And we get in some conversation between games, and he goes, hey, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm a volleyball coach. Didn't bring up the ministry. Again, I don't know why. I get like hot flashes thinking about it. Like I feel shame thinking about that, but I didn't. Get to the end of the day, no worries. Dave leaves. I'm talking to the other guys there on the beach, and they're like, hey, what'd you think about Dave? I was like, super cool guy, like, glad we met. They go, yeah, I can't believe he's here. His dad died yesterday. And I'm telling you, it was like a slap in the face. It was this moment where I just recognized maybe the whole purpose for me to go down to the beach today was to talk to Dave and give him a word of encouragement, pray for him, invite him to church, like something, right? And then I'm looking back at these small decisions that God had given me. And the FCA tank top would have been a conversation starter. or at least would have gotten me on the right path to be able to listen to what God had for me. But I said no to that moment. It went out, and that put me in this mindset of saying no, of not looking for an opportunity. What small decisions might God have for you today? What small decisions might God have for you this Christmas season that are seemingly so small and insignificant? And if we're honest with ourselves, connect with what I felt. It goes back to being ashamed. It's more annoying to talk about it, or it's uncomfortable to talk about it. And my discomfort is trumping the goodness of God in that moment. And so we start to realize that even the small, seemingly insignificant steps in our life, they can take over. And so here's a perspective shift, is that we can turn someday into today. We can turn someday into today, meaning this. It is so easy to think, someday I'll have the opportunity to do it. Doesn't matter if I step in today. I'll have plenty of chances for conversation with Dave, right? I'll have plenty of opportunities to be good, to be the good guy later. Someday will happen, but right now, if I have a someday mindset, if I have a then mindset, then you know what I get locked into now? I get locked into comfort. If I'm sacrificing someday for right now, I'm saying what I care about is my agenda. And then when I'm ready, God, I'll let you know, I'll tag in, and then you can use me later. And God is saying, I'm calling you to something today. If you have a someday mindset, if you have a then mindset, here's what happens. Your comfort takes over, and your current blessings that you have in life, they actually become annoyances. They become obstacles. They become frustrating. Like, you can find yourself. Here's another full disclosure. You guys are going to think I'm the worst person ever. There's some times where, with the wrong perspective, I have someday, Jace, my youngest boy, who asks more questions than anybody on the face of the earth, and I love it. But boy, he asks some questions. And you know what? If I have a someday mentality, if I have I'll show Jace his value, I'll give Jace his time then mentality, then my now, is it even possible to see it as an interference, to see it as an annoyance when I want to watch the game? And here's Jace just wanting my undivided attention, and I would let my own comfort take over inside of that. Now think about this ripple effect that's happening. Think about the people who are coming to you and maybe needing you to step in and speak a word of value to them. Your family members who need you to love, to step in like the girls in my youth group did. Doesn't have to be, it's not just the absence of malice. It is stepping in with good and echoing God's thoughts of somebody. And me looking Jace in his eyes and saying, you are worth my undivided attention. Here's me showing you your value and the ripple effect that matters inside of that. I wrote that we have to be stronger than our strongest excuses. When I said that, by the way, sometimes when we hear stronger, you know what we think? We think, all right, I'm going to do it. Here's what being stronger than your strongest excuse means. It means the strongest you ever will be is when you are aligned with God's perspective. That's how you are strong. When you have the clarity of how God is seeing you, when you have the clarity of how God is seeing other people, and you are lockstep in what God has designed for you, that is how you are strong. It is not gritting it yourself and saying, I'm going to make everything work out. You are the strongest when you are connected with God. So here's a challenge. My challenge is, what is one habit that we can begin to implement in our lives today that makes us strong, that daily aligns our perspective with God's perspective? What is one habit that we can get into? You know, on our Shoreline app, which I would encourage you to download, at the bottom of the app there, it says SOAP, which stands for Scripture, Observation, Application, and Prayer. And I'm telling you, It only takes 5 minutes a day. Download the app. We give it to you there on the app. Read scripture for 5 minutes at the beginning. And that is your choice. Honestly, that will get you in the mindset of putting on the FCA tank top instead of the blank tank top. It perpetuates the next step. It changes your perspective and what you look for. What is one habit you can get into? And when you do that, you begin this journey with him, and you take someday and you make it today. And I wrote that you turn intentions into actions. This was a big one for me. I sat on this one for a while. I have every intention of being a good husband. I have every intention of being a good father, every intention of being a good teammate, an employee, an employer, and friend. But intentions are someday, right? Intentions are someday. Actions are today. What is one thing that you can do today to habitually align yourself with God's plan? Because the assignment, what God has given you throughout the course of the day, that's up to him. He is orchestrating your life right now in the sphere of influence that you have in a way that you can't even understand, right? I believe, I saw it later, but he had done something in my closet to inspire me to wear that tank top because of the life of Dave. He is giving you seemingly insignificant things in your life right now to play a part in the life of somebody else. The assignment is up to God. The alignment is up to us. The alignment is up to us. If we are aligned, if we are doing the work so that we can hear God, that we are a conduit for him, then we've got to trust his eternal orchestration. He is working in the body of believers. He is working in the neighborhood. He's working in your family. And I know it's a mess. And I know you're just wondering, how's it going to work out this Christmas season? He is giving you FCA tank top moments today that will pay dividends in your family this Christmas season. The assignment's up to God, but the alignment is up to us. All right, I want to read this scripture here. It's one of my favorite scriptures. It is a parable that Jesus tells, and a parable is like a story that has a point to it. And you know what they say about a parable is better than one bull. It's my favorite Bible joke. Actually, no, it's not. Here's my favorite Bible joke. Jesus told Peter, come forth and receive eternal life. But Peter came fifth and won a toaster. That's my favorite Bible joke. Okay, Matthew 25, we're starting in verse 14. Again, it will be, I love the sporadic laughs when people are catching. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. By the way, they are estimating that this isn't just like chump change. This is a substantial amount of money. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, you entrust me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you've not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and I hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, "You wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed? Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags, for whoever has will be given more." I think that there is so much in the scriptures. One of my favorites. It is so rich of things to take away. But here's the first lesson I want us to learn. So the guy with 5 bags got 5 more. Do you remember what the master said to him? "Well done, good and faithful servant," right? And then the guy with 2 bags came and he made 2 more. And what did the master say? "Well done, good and faithful servant." Now, what he didn't say was to the guy with 2 bags, "Hey, Steve made 5. Like, he's got 10 bags. Why can't you be more like Steve?" Right? The guy with 2 made 2 more, and the master says, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And so here's what we take from that. You are not responsible for what God has given someone else. You are not responsible for what God has given someone else. God is incredibly intentional with what he has given you. Now, this parable is talking financial, but it goes beyond financial. Financial too. God knows your finances. If God calls you into something financially, he knows what is necessary as an FCA tank top moment just to cultivate faith in him. He is pulling you beyond your comfort for a reason. It's because he wants to establish trust with you. He wants to establish a relationship. But even more than that, you are an intentional creation. I told you, one of my friends said it beautifully. He goes, "You are God's idea." He had this beautiful idea for you, and everything about you he thought together. And not only that, but he has a plan and a purpose for you. And so what God has given Pastor Eric, you're not responsible for that. What God's given Tim Tebow, you're not responsible for that. It's not like I'm not doing enough. He has a very specific role in your sphere of influence for you to play using what you have been designed to carry. He knows you better than you know yourself. And, here's another reason I think that we discount ourselves, is I think that all of us think, I'm the 1 bag guy, right? I'm not a 5 bag guy. I'm a 1 bag guy. That's probably why the 1 bag guy went and hid the money. It's because he thought, who cares? Who cares? The world's not changed with this. If I have 1 more, I'd get 2. Great. That guy has 10. That's the world changer. Financially, who cares if I give out of my measly little paycheck? What is that changing? That's the person who changes the world. We figure that we are the 1 bag guy. Here's what I want to tell you this morning. We're going to look at a verse that says specifically this, is that you are chosen. You are chosen. 1 Peter 2:9, but you are a chosen people. Listen, this is for you, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. You are chosen. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been chosen for anything before, but it feels good. I'm thinking back to when we were picking teams in a sport, and you had team captains, and then you're just like, please let me be chosen. It'd always be like there's 13 people, and I would be the one at the end, and they'd be fighting over who doesn't get me, But I'm telling you, it doesn't matter if you're 8 down the list. The second that you are chosen, that feels good. And they'd go, Graham. You'd be like, darn right, Graham, right? Get a little cocky walk over there. When we are talking about sports, that's one thing. What about when we're talking about a spiritual life? When we're talking about being used by God. Think about this. Let's just say we had God the Father and Jesus the Son right here, and they were picking teams for the spiritual life, right? They get to pick teams. Where do you think you would stack in Shoreline Church? Where do you think you would stack in Destin? right? Okay, obviously I know this guy's a first round draft pick, then he's got to go with that guy, right? Just killer that. But like, what do I bring to the table? It's so easy to think that. You know what story we look at to show ourselves where we would be chosen is when Jesus was here on earth. He had clout. There was so much buzz around him as a rabbi, as a teacher, that he had his pick of the litter for who would follow him. And he wasn't the elitist of picking these people who were perfect. In fact, he goes, I'm going to establish my following, establish my church on the underwhelming, normal people so that I can get the glory, not so that perfect people can call attention to themselves. He would pick you first. Yeah, but I'm a one-bag guy. He has an intention for you. He has a plan for you. I'm just a two-bag. He knows. He needs you. Not everybody's going to have a platform like those people. God doesn't orchestrate it like that. We have to trust the way that he is moving. Doesn't matter who we are. God can use us. We learned it last week. Second thing, or the next thing that we learned from this story is you never know what God can do with an act of generosity. You never know what God can do with an act of generosity. Luke 21, 1-4, you may have heard the story before. It's called the widow's offering. While Jesus was in the temple, he watched the rich people dropping their gifts in the collection box. Then a poor widow came by and dropped in 2 small coins. I tell you the truth, Jesus said. This poor widow has given more than all of the rest of them, for they have given a tiny part of their surplus, but she, poor as she is, has given everything she has. This woman, the one-bag person, gave this amount probably thinking, what can possibly be used? How can this possibly make a difference? And here we are thousands of years later being inspired by her small story of stepping into a seemingly small, insignificant moment that God had orchestrated for eternal trajectory. We continue to be affected because she was willing to step in. You never know what God can do with an act of generosity. You know, generosity, I believe, especially around this time, we start to think about what we can give and what it's going to do. And yes, God is meeting tangible needs through the generosity of our church. And he is also giving you ways to release your hands from your possession inside of that time. I believe that sometimes generosity, or the opportunity for generosity, is just as much for the health of our hearts, the health of our souls, than what is going to be done for the money, with the money, right? Let's take the widow's example. Probably not too much was done with those 2 coins, but it was for the health of her heart. It was for an opportunity for her to grow closer to her Father, and God uses it in a profound way. And here we are, the end of the season. And I'm just saying that I believe, because I've seen it in the parade, and I've seen it in Tyranny Christmas, and I've seen it in the way that God has used Shoreline, that he is preparing you to be the light in the darkness. He is preparing you to be the salt of the world. He is giving you micro opportunities to show God's love to the people around you. And I want to encourage us. Sometimes we get in here and it feels like the weight of the world is just on our shoulders, and we're kind of trudging along. But you know what? God has not created your life to be survival. He has not created you to be trudging along. God desires for you to walk into a room and for your joy and connection to him to be the light in the room. That we are the light in the darkness. That the rest of the world is barely trudging along. They have an interaction with us and they say that it's something different. Think back to the first Christmas present you ever had that sticks with you. What's the first one that you remember that you're like, that was a big deal? Like, that stands out. For me, it was, we had the Red Arrow remote control car. I'm telling you, this thing should be illegal, because I don't want to exaggerate, but it went like 7,000 miles per hour. It's the fastest thing that's ever existed. And you better believe I only drove it as fast as it would go, and I was a terrible driver, so I'm just, fracturing shins everywhere I go with this thing. And I would drive it for 3 hours, and then eventually, because I'm going full speed, it gets to the end of its life, and it's just like, and and I'm trying to get the last bit of juice out of it, right? It's like, eh. And I tried to take it up a ramp, and it'd go, eh. I was like, all right, time to recharge it. I would recharge it, and then I'd go out and break somebody's leg with it, right, the next day. I do think that that is how a lot of us kind of view our spiritual lives, how we view even our connection with God, our relationship with God, is that we have these recharge moments. We have these moments of desperation, and God shows up, and we're excited, and we're going, and we're full speed ahead. But man, we try to take it by ourselves and hold on to goodness for as long as we can, and hold on to love for as long as we can, and we just get so burnt out. We get like George Bailey that says, do I even matter? Is life even affected? And then we end up kind of trudging in and then hoping to get recharged again. Happens in the course of a day, happens in the course of a week, happens in the course of a year. You know, they say that most people have decided in a given year by July whether that year is a wash or not. Whether they're going to look back on 2022 or 2023 and say it was a good year. And if that's the case, in July, you still have 5 months that you are trudging through. Spiritually, if you're trying to do it yourself, you ever found parents that you get to the end of a day and it just feels like you are not the best version of yourself when you're putting your kids to bed? And the most beautiful opportunity that you have to breathe life into them. It's that moment that you find yourself at the end of yourself and you're spiritually drained and you're just like barely trudging through. You get to the end of a week and it just feels like I'm so disconnected from God. Sunday was so many days ago, and so your Friday and Saturday, you're taking it on your own strength, which leads to bad decisions because you just feel disconnected from God. And then Sunday morning comes along and you just feel disconnected, like the remote control car that's barely there, and you just have shame over the decisions you made in a weekend, and you're barely trudging in to Sunday. Or a whole year. How long has it been since January when you had those New Year's resolutions and you said, here's what I'm going to do, but you gave up on July? And you feel so spiritually drained that you get to November and you actually have to sit and think and remind yourself of reasons to be grateful. Then you hit December and you feel so spiritually disconnected and so anxious and frustrated that you're like, please, if somebody brings up politics, I'm going to fight somebody, right? Like you're just on edge. God is giving you an opportunity just today for a small, seemingly insignificant step forward. One, to cultivate faith in Him and His plan, for you to recognize that He has designed you intentionally, He has a purpose for you, but also for us to realize that it might be an FCA tank top moment to lean into a conversation that will have a ripple effect, maybe for the trajectory of somebody's eternity, and He's using you. Not one person in here, not one, is discounted from God's plan. Not one. If you're in here thinking this is for everybody but not me, not one person is discounted. He has something for you. He has designed you intentionally for that. To lean in. You know, George Bailey in the movie, why it's so impactful is because he sees, you know what? Just by these small acts of kindness, that the world around me has changed. And I want us to be encouraged as a church to say, think about the life change potential that is in this room if we go out there and we say, us, God, use us. Last verse, Proverbs 3:6-7. This is a Message translation. Trust God from the bottom of your heart. Don't try to figure out everything on your own. Listen for God's voice in everything you do. Everywhere you go, He's the one who will keep you on track. Don't assume that you know it all. Run to God. Let's pray. Father, we are here admitting that tens, maybe hundreds of times in a given day, given week, we find ourselves being ashamed, choosing comfort over your goodness. And this is our declaration as a church, The assignment is up to you. We trust the way that you orchestrate things. And Father, we're going to take alignment seriously, that we're going to start our day understanding how you feel about us and in turn how we are to treat other people. We are your extensions of goodness and love and grace. And we're going to take it seriously, knowing that people's eternal trajectory is affected by our connection to you. We love you. We are learning to trust you more and more every day. In your precious name, amen.